Wall Street rally continues as the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 close at record levels. Asian markets trade largely higher ahead of a press conference scheduled by the Chinese central bank, where we have some decisions that have rolled out, and the GIFT Nifty is indicating a near 26,000 mark. Gold prices set yet another record high driven by geopolitical tensions and the Fed's rate cut. Crude prices remain range-bound with Brent trading around $74 a barrel. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon says India is doing a lot of right things and he is optimistic about the growth prospects. Stops short of endorsing either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris in the U.S. presidential race. Also says he does not expect to become the next U.S. Treasury Secretary. That's an exclusive. A recent SEBI study reveals 91% of F&O traders have lost a cumulative of 1.8 lakh crore rupees between FY22 and FY24. Only 1% traders made a report over a lakh, while algo traders are making a solid profit over the same period. SEBI clears MobiKwik's 700 crore rupees IPO proposal. The size is about one-third of that they had planned raised during the first attempt of the IPO. Meanwhile, sources tell CNBC TV 18 that NTPC Green Energy's IPO is likely to hit the street in the first week of November. Hello, good morning in the Mumbai News Centre. I'm Vinny Motiwala and you're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Let's take a quick look at how the Asian markets have performed. Yes, while yesterday we did see the Nifty closing at 25,939 levels, a bit of a positive side that we saw there. But Asian markets today also are seeing a bit of a positive up move. Look at the Seng that's managing to hold on to gains of 2% in trade. Taiwan index, that's a bit muted that we're seeing in terms of a performance, but not a bad move that's coming in on that front. Shanghai, that's the one to watch out for as well. What we're seeing is the Chinese stocks actually is leading the gains in the Asian markets. The Central Bank of China, that announced a slew of policy measures that have just come in a short while ago in terms of easing of the measures. And this was in a very rare briefing that we were seeing coming in, but a lot of measures that have been taken. And that is why if you would look at the Shanghai index also, that is managing to hold on to gains. Hang Seng too is managing to hold on to gains. Today we have Nikkei that is quite muted in trade, so keeping an eye out on that one. But surely interesting to watch out for in terms of how the Indian markets will open up as well. And the Nifty implied open indicated a bit of a positive start at one point of time. It was up 70 points. As of now, just up 50 points. 50, 60 points is what we're watching out for. The 26,000 mark. Are we going to be reaching that mark? That's a key focus area. But surely Asian markets, a bit of a positive handover that we could say is coming in for the Asian market, especially given that Nikkei is trading with positive gains. Hang Seng is holding on to good gains, as well as Shanghai, while ASX 200, that's the Australian index, maybe some bit of an impact because their central bank will be meeting for some rate decisions. They expected to hold the rate, so keeping an eye out on that, but not a bad start that we're expecting for the Indian markets as of now. Nifty implied open also indicating a bit of a positive start. But what happened in the US market? Wall Street ended higher on Monday with the S&P 500 touching fresh highs, as well as the Dow Jones Index also added around 61 points. When you look at the tech-heavy Nasdaq, that ticked up by 25 points as well. CNBC's Kate Rooney gets us a wrap in terms of all the action that happened on Wall Street.
U.S. markets finished marginally higher across the major indexes Monday as Wall Street tries to build on last week's momentum from the Federal Reserve's rate cut. The Dow up 61 points, the S&P 500 up 16 points, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq up 26 points. The Commerce Department is proposing a ban on smart cars that use Chinese or Russian tech. U.S. officials say this would address national security concerns related to hardware and software from those countries, and the ban would target connected vehicles, which is almost any car or truck that uses hardware or software like Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and cellular technology for features such as roadside assistance. The Commerce Department says there would be a software ban for vehicles starting with the 2027 model year and a hardware ban with the 2030 model year. And California is suing ExxonMobil over its alleged role in plastic pollution. The state's attorney general is accusing the oil giant of misleading the public and falsely claiming all plastic can be recycled. It's part of an investigation by the state's AG into how several fossil fuel companies are impacting pollution. ExxonMobil telling Reuters that suing people makes headlines but doesn't solve the problem, and says that its advanced recycling work is a real solution for the plastics problem. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back to you in Mumbai.
That's a roundup of what happened on the Wall Street. But Minneapolis Federal Reserve President Neil Kashkari commented about the delay in the cuts that we saw from the Federal Reserve. But he also reaffirms that they are steadily moving towards that 2% target of their inflation. What more did he have to say? Listen in.
Certainly the risks have shifted. I look forward and I think, which risk am I more worried about right now? A surprising uptick in inflation or a surprising uptick in unemployment? It's the latter, at least it is for me. I think right now we still have a strong, healthy labor market, but I want to keep it a strong, healthy labor market. And a lot of the recent inflation data is coming in looking very positive that we're on our way back to 2%. So I don't think you're going to find anybody at the Federal Reserve who declares mission accomplished, but we are paying attention to what risks are most likely to materialize in the near future. But we are aware of the mistake that I think that we collectively made in holding rates a little bit low for a little bit too long. So there's always learning that's going on. I do think that the calendar in terms of when our meetings happen and when the data releases happen, that's a factor, and we get data with a lag. The GDP data, it's been well documented, is backward looking, and then by the time we get it, by the time we can factor it in. So that's always ever present. And then the election, as Jay Powell has said many times, and I think all of my colleagues have said, it's simply not a factor in our deliberation. And so I think the first two theories that people offered you, those are not crazy theories. All of those go into our risk assessment of what's the best action we can take to ultimately, hopefully, achieve a soft landing and preserve our dual mandate goals.
The former CEO at PIMCO and the chief economic advisor at Allianz, Mohammad El-Arian, comments about the shift in the Federal Reserve's policy and how they have pivoted to being more in terms of looking forward. Let's go across and listen in.
How much of the uncertainty that remains is due to the pandemic, and how much is due to significant secular changes in the world we're living in that would have occurred regardless of the pandemic? I suspect that the balance has shifted significantly towards the latter, that most of the effects of the pandemic are now behind us. And that's important because if that is the case, then you have got to be less data dependent and more forward looking. And the good news is that the Fed is making that pivot. They are actually looking forward and starting to be more strategic, something that they haven't been since their big mistake in 2021.
Okay, in terms of the global market updates as well, let's take in some of the cues that have come in from the European markets. DAX, that managed to close on the positive note. FTSE also managed to close on the positive note. But CSE, that was a bit unchanged. So a bit of a mixed view that we're seeing coming in from the European markets, but not much of a disappointment in terms of the handover that we have for the Indian markets. Now, let's move on and looking at all the handover that we had from the global markets, what is it that we are expecting from the Indian markets? Our research team is joining in with us in terms of how we are looking at the trade setup, what are the stocks that we are watching out for. Vivek, first up, what are we watching out for in terms of market cues for today?
Well, good morning. Today we could go ahead and breach the 26,000 mark, and that's what most of the market participants will be eyeing. It could be quite a significant session in terms of that particular milestone being reached. But like you mentioned at the start of the show, we've actually got a very positive handover as far as global markets are concerned. S&P as well as Dow Jones ending at record closing levels. Now, talking about oil prices yesterday ended lower. Brent futures ended 0.8% lower to $73.9 a barrel mark. So that continues to remain a tailwind. Now, talking about the Indian markets yesterday, again, record closing level above the 25,900 mark. You saw buying activity throughout the trading session. What actually did make a comeback was the fact that the PSU stock and the entire PSU market returned with a bang, and the PSU bank index was something that saw significant uptick in yesterday's session. The broader markets too gained in tandem, and the advanced decline ratio and the market rate was something that was very, very positive. Key gainers in yesterday's trading session, M&M, has seen a significant up in the last few trading sessions, and the telecom pack, both Idea as well as Indostar, making a sharp comeback in this trade yesterday. Asian markets, remember, a very important development has happened early today morning. The PBOC has cut the reserve requirement ratio by 50 basis points. On the back of that, most of the Asian markets are doing quite well, and GIFT Nifty 2 is indicating a gap up start. Key events to watch out for: 3 listings today. So RK Developers, Northern Arc as well as Western Carriers will make their debut on the exchanges today morning, and how they list will be something that the market will be watching quite keenly.
Thanks so much for that, Vivek. But let's move on to Vamakshi. Good morning. And which are the stocks that we're keeping an eye out on today?
Well, good morning, Vinny. Let me first start off with Spandana Spurti. The company has undertaken sale of a stressed loan portfolio with an outstanding value of around 304 crores to an ARC. This is for a consideration amounting to 16.74 crores on a security receipts consideration basis. Punjab National Bank is the next one we're watching out for. The company has launched its QIP yesterday with a floor price of 109.16 per share. Sources say that the base size of this QIP is at 2,500 with a green shoe option of another 2,500 crores. Indicative price is seen at 103.75 per share, which is coming in at a nearly 7% discount to the current market price. AstraZeneca Pharma has received the CDSCO's permission to import for sale and distribution durvalumab solution, which is used to treat adults with a type of cancer called BTC. GR Infra Projects has emerged as the lowest bidder for a project worth 905 odd crores of Maharashtra Metro Rail Corporation. BGR Energy Chennai is also in focus because Chennai Metropolitan Water Supply and Sewage Board has terminated a contract worth 440 crores due to delay in execution of projects and the quality of the RO water. Power Grid has been declared as a successful bidder to establish interstate transmission system, and this project comprises of installation of STATCOMs at Khavda Pooling Station 1 and Station 3. First Source is another counter that will be in focus, and that is because its arm, First Source Solutions UK, will be acquiring 100% ownership in Ascensos for around 468 odd crores. Thangamayil Jewelry will be considering fundraising via issuance of equity shares or bonds on September 26th. And lastly, watch out for Pondy Oxides because the company is looking to raise up to 250 crores via QIP in one or more tranches.
Thanks so much for that, Vamakshi. But finally, Nigel is joining in with us to tell us what are the important cues in the world of FNO. Nigel, good morning.
Well, morning. Getting into the monthly expiry, we're seeing rollovers pick up in this series, moving into the next one. It's a little bit higher in comparison at the same time the previous series. So just keep that in mind. Rollovers are picking up. The Nifty Financial Services Index, that has the weekly expiry contract, and that will play out today. And if you're looking at positioning the clients as well as the FI as well, they're opposite ends of the spectrum, which I'll get to in just a bit. Yesterday, you had the Nifty that ended higher. Basically, we opened up in the green and we ended a little higher than where we opened up. So we ended with a gain of around 145 points. We opened up with a gain of around 110, 120 points or thereabouts. Now, the Nifty moved up and the VIX as well moved up. Now, that's telling you that, in fact, there is some kind of caution round the corner, because normally we have an inverse relation between both of them. What about the FI positioning? Yesterday, they added 12,000 long, 12,000 short contracts. Now the long positioning is at around 75%, while the shorts are at around 25%. But I'd mentioned positioning as the opposite ends of the spectrum because the FIs, they're aggressively net long, the clients are aggressively net short, and both those two data points are the highest that we've seen at opposite ends of the spectrum all the way since July. So it's a 2-month high in terms of the FI net long positions, and it's a 2-month high on the short side for the client positioning as well. Moving to the PCR, then yesterday we made this point. The PCR has moved to the upper end of the range at around 1.5. It cooled off a little bit, but it's still holding at around 1.42. And the options data comes up for you on the screen. Keep in mind, these strikes, they expire in the next 2 sessions or so. So you have some bit of writing being seen at both those two call options. Plugging in the numbers, you have some kind of resistance. We get to around 26,000 on, but maybe the algo-based selling as well could come in. And the 26,050 odd mark, that appears as the first resistance zone. So expect some kind of rejection of that level, and then we'll see whether we can get past that. The options data suggests 25,700. Well, that's the first support level that we're looking at. And you'll see the trend is up till the 20 DMA holds out as well. The Nifty Bank, that's the one that's been driving the gains. The last 1 year, it's been a relative underperformer, but it's found its mojo and it's come back in style in the last 5 sessions or thereabouts, as that screen tells you. The sector that I'm looking at in today's trading session, well, it's going to be the metal index because of the commentary coming in from the People's Bank of China with regard to potential rate cuts. We'll keep an eye out on that. And a stock that's come out of the FNO ban is RBL Bank. So we'll keep an eye out on that one as well. Back to you.
Thank you so much for that, Nigel. But on that note, we're going to slip into a very short break. More news and updates after the break. Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Let's move on and talk about NTPC Green Energy, the renewable energy arm of NTPC. Now, that's expected to launch its IPO in the first week of November this year. What more are the details on this? Abhimanyu is joining you with us. Abhimanyu, good morning.
NTPC is targeting 60 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2032, and as part of these plans itself, its fully owned subsidiary NTPC Green Energy a few days back had filed a DRHP with SEBI and is already in process of going the IPO route to raise more funds. The company is also in process of going for road shows across India and several other places in the world. As per sources, the IPO is likely in the first week of November, and the company has already begun its road shows. It's expected to do these road shows in Mumbai, in India, and in several other places across the world, including the US, the UK, and Singapore. It remains to be seen which other places the company is going for as far as road shows are concerned, and what is the degree of investment it is aiming to target. And based on that itself, its future plans, of course, would unfold, and the establishing of the targeted capacity would, of course, happen only on the basis of the investment it would be able to secure based on funds from India and abroad.
Thank you so much for that update there. But let's slip into a short break on that note. But after the break, we'll get to the cues in the world of commodity. Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. And like promised, we do have Manisha Gupta joining in with us to tell us what's happening in the world of commodities. Manisha, good morning.
Morning, and thank you for that, Winnie. Well, I'll start with the gold prices, which are holding near all-time highs of $26.30 an ounce. There was a report from Citi overnight suggesting and reiterating higher prices for gold. Citi's report suggests that $2,800 to $3,000 an ounce in 2025 is the kind of prices that they are looking at. Well, for this week now, it's important to watch the Switzerland and Sweden monetary policy meetings. The U.S. Fed chair himself and the members are slated to speak in this week as well, and that would move the US dollar and various other asset classes. Having said that, when you look at the net long positions from the money managers, they only have increased when it comes to gold and silver to the highest since 2020. So the bullishness here just about continues. The crude oil prices also seem to be holding well after 4% of gains in the previous week. The conflict between Israel and Hezbollah and the weak European Union business activity is something that is providing support to the markets. Also, a second major hurricane in 2 weeks is forming in the Gulf of Mexico, and ahead of that, some evacuation work already is happening there, also adding premium to prices.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Manisha. But that's all we have on Power Breakfast. Bazaar Morning Call comes up next. Thank you so much for tuning in.